Hi. We're talking today about concise writing, and I'm a little nervous to talk about concise writing because it's often thrown around as the most important aspect of effective writing and concise writing. Like, people place so much value on it that I want to push back against that a little bit, not only because I tend to be a little wordy, and so obviously I would feel a little pushback against concise writing, but I also think, it's important to make a choice, make a writerly choice about how concise you want to be. And it's okay if sometimes you don't want to be concise. So throughout this whole video, I'm going to be emphasizing moderation, right? You don't have to aim for the most concise version of everything you want to say. That said, concise writing is important. It does add efficacy to your writing in many different contexts and at many different times. So I'll show you some strategies that you can use to help with that. First of all, I want to think about context. If you have a word limit, then it's much more important to be concise because you want to make sure that your ideas are communicated and that you're not kind of wasting precious space with words that don't need to be there. With disciplinarity, it's also more important in some disciplines than in others to have concise writing. So you might want to read what others have written in a particular discipline to see whether they are more or less concise. And then again, moderation. So don't go wild making everything as concise as possible. Just make choices, make informed choices. One of the most common causes of the lack of concise writing is redundancy. And this involves redundancy of words as well as redundancy of ideas. In this first example, we'll talk about words. Here are a few sentences that offer redundant words. The final outcome of this course will be writing expertise. Your writing is strong, tough, and robust. Sometimes I feel anxious and uneasy about my writing. And as you can see, the redundant words come over here. Final outcome. Really, an outcome is the final outcome, so you could take out final. Your writing is strong, tough, and robust. This is something I'm terrible at. I always have ands in many of my sentences, and I often don't need them, right? One word would probably be good enough. In this case, maybe robust has a slightly different flavor than strong and tough, but strong and tough are the same. So I think maybe I would go with strong. Sometimes I feel anxious and uneasy about my writing. In a way, this is emphasizing just how anxious and uneasy someone might feel. So maybe this writer really does want to convey the double nature of that anxiety, or maybe not. So if the writer wants to eliminate something, again, maybe he or she doesn't, but if the writer does, I think I would put anxious, since it's the kind of more honest version, right? Uneasy can maybe seem a lesser version of anxiety. Redundancy also happens, though, across a writing project based on ideas. Here's an example. Talent is not something people are born with or without. Talent is not an innate gift. Expertise does not come naturally. And this writer was really trying to emphasize his or her point and felt like saying it 3 times would be more effective than just saying it once. And perhaps that's true. That's why I said in moderation. So maybe this writer really does need to say it 3 times. I'm not sure. I probably think that actually saying it once would be enough, so I would probably take out those sentences. Now, if a writer really was attached to perhaps this final sentence instead, then you could make a different choice. Sometimes we make the flaw of becoming too attached to certain ways that we've said it. Maybe this writer really loves the way he or she wrote it the first time, also loves the second time, also loves the third time, and can't make a choice. But when that happens, what I suggest is that you just take those sentences and don't delete them, but just move them to another document for another time, for another writing project, so you can have the beautiful sentence that you had written, but you don't have to have redundancy of ideas. Another aspect of concise writing that you'll want to be making choices about is elevated phrases and language. And this is particularly something to be thinking about in the context of academic writing, where students maybe are hoping to write to sound smart or to impress somebody, and so they'll use what they think of as academic sounding language, right? Or if you're trying to reach 2 pages, you'll kind of spread out your ideas using words as filler words. It's not the best idea because you, as readers, you kind of know when you see a filler word or an elevated language. So here are 3 of the common ones that you might notice. At the present time, you could just write now. Due to the fact that, you could just write because. The reason for is another because, or perhaps why. You don't have to sound smart. You should just trust that you are smart and that your ideas are important enough that they are going to make a difference, not in necessarily the smart sounding phrases that you use. One other aspect of concise writing that you might want to be thinking about is unneeded qualifiers, such as, I am really excited to read your writing. Your feedback is absolutely essential, or learning how to write more concisely can be somewhat helpful. Here, the really excited, I would suggest that excited is excited. Like, I don't know if you can be really excited. It's already like a little more, it's a higher degree of enthusiasm than just enthusiastic or happy or looking forward to, right? I suppose you could argue that maybe this writer could take that out and use thrilled as maybe a more extreme version of really excited, but in general, probably excited is good, right? I am excited to read your writing. I don't need to say really. Your feedback is absolutely essential. Essential means that you can't live without it. You can't do without it, so you really don't need absolutely. And here, learning how to write more concisely can be somewhat helpful. I understand that this person is hedging on the somewhat, and since my emphasis here is on moderation with concise writing or aiming to be concise, I think I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna write "stet," which means leave it alone. So sometimes it's okay to have a qualifier.